Welcome to another episode of Medium Unlimited. My name is Sin Lagos. I am a photographer, graphic designer, and aspiring filmmaker. So thank you for being here on today's stream. I know it's not the usual schedule, but I'm still happy to have you here. Make sure to jump on the chat. I'm looking at Behance on YouTube, but most of all, I'm just here to hang out. I have a couple projects I want to complete, focus on photography. So I often take a lot of photos and they don't always end up published. Have you had that problem? I feel like it's a common thing. Okay, so I've told myself I need to rectify that. And some of the tools I use now have really helped me in mitigating that issue by making it fun, most of all. So let's jump right in. Let's explore some of the photos that I want to edit today. And then afterwards, we're going to join Adobe Express to talk about how we can share them and get them seen by the world. My friend and I were talking about digital versus print. Whenever possible, publish them digital. But if you have a local print shop, definitely support and get that experience because it's honestly one of a kind. But for now, we'll be doing the digital side. All right, let's jump on in. Okay, so I've got this photo here in front of me, and I think I'm good on listening, hearing myself here. Okay, so I've got this photo in front of me, and I love this photo because I took a filter that has a kaleidoscope effect. And so if you notice right here, you get to see some really cool multiplicity happening. And I really dig that, especially in something like this, because it has so much texture. Let's look at it up close. So there's a lot of texture here. And now I often shoot in black and white because I want to get the color just right. Scratch that, the lighting just right. So by shooting in black and white, that helps me look at only the lighting conditions and not get too fixated in the color. I am one of those people that get fixated on the color because I love color. I do. I know. It's like, how could you not like flavors of ice cream? It's like, whoa. So I definitely have found a unique approach to my color. But while I'm shooting, what is most important to me isn't color. While I'm shooting, what's most important is the light balance. And that's really important for me at all times. So this is still captured in RAW. So that means I still have the color version that we get to edit today. So you can see here the multiple kaleidoscopy effect that is actually really neat. And it's a little trippy on the books. There's a lot going on here, and I kind of love it because it forces you to look and look and look. This is an antique shop, and I really love being able to take portraits in any given situation. So this is a really special spot because I think this antique shop is not going to be there any longer. And that's always nice to capture a little bit of history, especially supporting those small shops. Okay, so let's jump on this photo and try to improve the color. You might say, you know what, Sin, the color's just fine. Why even do post editing? I think the color could be better. There is no right and wrong in how you approach your color post processing. What's important is that you find a little bit of fun in it because that's what's going to really help your style shine above all. So you and I are different. We're all very different people. Adding a little bit of your fingerprint is going to be vital. And so if you can add it in the composition, if you can add it into the coloring, now you have a photo that is not just a shot that was snapped, but rather it has elements of your artistry. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so let's jump on here. We are in Adobe Lightroom, the cloud version. As you've seen in my previous live streams, I mostly use the cloud version. And I feel like that one tends to be my favorite ever since the photos get uploaded to the cloud, I feel like, okay, I can rest assured nothing will be lost, because that's always scary. But you always have a variation you can explore. So up here you have local. So let me just open my cursor here so you can see. Okay, so up here you have local, right? And that means that it's looking at your file within an SD card, a drive, whatever you may have. But it doesn't live in the cloud up until you right click and say add to cloud. So this is gonna be, oh, this one doesn't have it because I already added it to cloud. So whenever you want to add something, let's say maybe this one, it should say add to cloud. So let's look here, copy to cloud, no. Let's put that, filtering copied files. This may take several minutes. So this is me filtering, what do I have in the cloud? What don't I have in the cloud? And the last edit I did is about like 166 photos because I went wild photographing with my digital camera. So as you can imagine, several photos to take in Silker Park here in Austin, Texas. So we're not going to explore this too far, but just know you do have that capability to edit from the cloud and locally. This one is uploaded to the cloud, which means I can edit it on my iPad if I want to, on my phone if I want to. Okay, so let's edit this guy right here. Let's do original. Let's go back to original. So we've got original on this, and that means that our cropping is back to default. Let's remove our left bar here, which is where everything is stored. Our right bar is where everything is edited. My headphones keep slipping. I can hear it slipping from my hair. That's funny. Okay, so let's see. We're going to start by focusing on the composition, right? We'll do the color next, but I want to focus on the composition. So here, I do love this aspect ratio. It's not too bad. It's a 3:2, right? My favorite is always a 16:9 because it just gives it so much, I don't know, emphasis on the landscape. And on I love a panorama, you know, I love more length on either side horizontally rather than having something like, I don't know, at a vertical space is always very, very challenging. By a horizontal space, I don't know, I always tend to love narrowing that. It also helps if there's areas in your photo around the edge that you want to crop out so that, you know, you remove those things that are distracting. In this case, I kind of want to keep everything, but let's just take a look at this, just because we have that really cool fan at the top. I like that too. This fits perfectly on my desktop because of course it's also a 16:9. So, okay, let's go back to the original. It's the first time I actually want to keep the original. That's interesting. So I think I'm going to keep that. Let's go back to original. So as shot right here. Ooh, as shot is in fact bigger. So let me see, original 3:2. Yeah, this area down here is not phenomenal, but we still want him in the center. So let's do that to be sure. Changing the crop overlays. Using maybe something like diagonal works, but diagonal is really good for architecture most of all, I would say. So in this case, what this is telling me, the rule of thirds is telling me, is that the cross point is along the sides of his smile. So that's a pretty cool point to draw the eye in. I'm not mad at that. I think that's good. The other one is this section right here, which happens to be where the camera is, which happens to be where the kaleidoscope effect is. So again, not mad at that. Having that awareness makes you feel like, okay, I did this intentionally, as opposed to just letting it land wherever it may. You know, it's kind of one of those things. So Let's see. And I see folks here on Behance. Make sure to say hello where you're joining me from. I'm joining you from Austin, Texas. And for those of you who are just joining me, we're going to be doing a post-editing workflow and jumping into Adobe Express. So if you're interested in how to really find a joy in sharing your photos, join me here, because I'm trying to find the answer to that question myself. And practice is the only way to do it. So here we are. All right, so let's get back to our demo. And so I feel like this is good. I like my composition. There's very few things I actually want to remove here. That would be my next step. I don't know that I want to remove anything. I think all the busyness of it is adding to my photo. And the horizon line is a little weird because the ceiling is straight. However, this paneling is not. But I'm pretty sure the ceiling is what I have to follow. We'll see. Once I step away from it, I might discover something else. But okay, so we've got that. So far, so good. I'm going to challenge myself to do color in a different space. So what I'm gonna do is use the masking tools. And in here, I get to be very specific as to where my colors end up in. So what I mean by that is I can select subjects, objects, backgrounds separately. And that's really, really cool because it gives you a whole lot of more control than you would if you're just doing a global edit. So in this case, when I select my person, I get here entire person, you have facial skin, body, all of the things. It looks a little funny there in the selection, which by the way, you can make that selection something else. So let's do it something like this. There you go. So now we know where the selections are. So I often like to help a little bit because light bulbs and lights in spaces like this are often really yellow, making my person here, my subject, a bit yellow too. So I'm gonna help by correcting things like teeth or the eyes, sclera. I don't know how you pronounce that, but eye sclera? An S and a C together throws me off. But we can do things like this, right? I'll do one at a time. Let's do the teeth first. And we have a preset available, so we don't have to do much here. Alternatively, what you would want to do is instead of lightening the teeth, which is very minor, by the way, it's just a matter of separating, right? That's what we're attempting to do. This is a 2D file. We want to separate things as much as possible. So what I would do to the teeth wouldn't be to just increase these highlights. I think, yes, it can accomplish that, but what's even better is to find those yellows and reduce that temperature a little bit. So the yellow is not as strong, especially using something like point color. It can help in finding that palette and decide, okay, what color do I want it, or do I want it to be desaturated? There's just a lot more control, right? So if it has a little bit of yellow and you desaturate it, it enters an area where it isn't quite white. We don't want really crazy white teeth, but it still has that level of like, okay, we removed the yellowness and now it's desaturated. So it still has that luminance and natural color to it. And I feel like that's much better. So that's how I approach the lightening of teeth or separating that palette, especially in a room like this where I didn't have a chance to do the lighting myself. Okay, that works for me so far. That's all we've done. It's not a global edit. This has been focused on a mask. Okay, so I think I'm ready to select the entire subject. And this is going to be really tricky because we do have that kaleidoscope effect on it. So, okay, it did a fairly good job. You can see the black and white is not selected. So you can see areas on the left are not selected as much. But I can do with that. I want to focus more on the hue and luminance of the color blue. That's all over his hat, that's all over his shirt. I like it, but I think we can make it more special. So let's go in here and separate this a little bit with a few adjustments. Let's go into the point color again. Select that blue and give it a little bit of more oomph. What's up, Keys? Hey, nice to see you in here. I see Barbara also. Oh, okay. So Keys is asking, why is the photo so glitchy? Glitch is a good word around this area. So the reason is I forgot to take it out, but I use a kaleidoscope filter in front of my lens, and that is what's doing that effect. It's really cool, right? It's definitely something where I was a little bit, should I take this on, or is this gonna hurt my photo? But it ended up being really neat. So here are a few more examples, right? I made sure that the kaleidoscope area wasn't landing on their faces. So here's another portrait, and you can see the cool effects that can happen as a result. I think I did it here. I did one of me without the kaleidoscope. I really like that. And one of him without the kaleidoscope. So it's a filter. So I was able to remove it and try something else. But I love the effect that it took here in the lighting. I was shooting it through glass, and there was a few lights below it, and it just did a wonderful job. Isn't that cool? I love it. I think I might try it a few more times, but on the go, it definitely made me a little bit insecure because I was like, am I messing up my photos permanently? Sometimes a little bit of permanence doesn't hurt, right? So, okay, we're changing the blues. What blue do we want? In this case, I like a little bit of a nod to those nostalgic blues that tend to be in film. Since this environment is in fact a antique store, I think it's befitting to do a nod to yesteryear in our color palette too. So I like this. I think something like that. We can shift the range to determine how much ends up being affected. But in this case, I kind of like the way it was already. So I like that. So far, so good. Now, other things that are prevalent here I notice are reds. There's red here, a little bit more burgundy. There's true primary red right here. There's red on the sun. It's funny because that sun is like my tattoo. We were bonding over that. So I thought that was really cool. And then we have some warmer colors like yellow. So I want to be able to target those palettes. Let's go back here into effects, into color, and let's try to affect those specific reds. Now, if I do it this way, you'll start to notice that I also affect his skin because we naturally have red in our skin. Key says it looks surreal. Yes, it does look really surreal. I like stuff like that. I think surreal is a very good way to define my new approach to my photography. I'm allowing myself permission to do things out of my own boundaries, you know? And that is something that's really hard to do after you've created and defined your own style. It's kind of hard to step out of it. You really have to grant yourself permission somehow. I don't know. Have y'all experienced that? I feel like it's a common thing. It happens every 3 years, 5 years. It happens more frequently than I want it to, but it's kind of fun sometimes. So I don't want to affect any red on his skin. So what I'm gonna have to do is go back to my mask, these headphones, go back to my mask and select the background. Here we go. Doing good on the background. So now we can see the thing that is black and white is no longer the background, it's our subject. So that means that the subject is not selected, but our background is. And that's only because I changed the way that this is reflecting its edit, okay? So now we can change any red in the background without affecting them. However, I do see that the hands are not being selected since we have so many hands. I think we're gonna have to add to this mask. So let's go in here, select add. Let's use a brush in order to add. Reduce that brush and start painting. And that should help add some of these here. Feather, no, I don't want so much feathering. Density is good. That in theory should have worked. Troubleshooting in real time, folks. I wonder if there's something else. What if we add subject? No, that's not what we want. What if we add color range, brush, objects? Objects. Ooh, would that work? Detecting object. New mask overlay. Still not quite it, but we're gonna have to do without it. I think that will be fine. There's not a lot of red on that. It is a pet peeve when something like this doesn't work for me. It's like, why not? Okay. So let's move on from that. And nevertheless, we have the background selected. We'll choose the point color here. It's been my recent favorite tool. I don't know, I used to love using the target adjustment tool. Now the point color has become my new favorite tool as of late. So I'll select this and I should be able to change that color. You see that? Without affecting his face. And in fact, the hands are not really too affected unless I go really magenta here, then that's really visible. So I would like to resolve that weirdness, but nevertheless, I'm not going that far. So let's do a little bit of orange tinting here. There's nothing better than a color palette that just makes sense. I think I might need to update my soundtrack. I really like this music, but I feel like I need I don't know. New soundtrack, new era. Do you know what I mean? That tends to be how it works for me, especially when I'm just getting lost in these editing zones. So I'm gonna go about there. That works for me. I forgot to do this early on, but this vignetting that's happening on the edges, it's kind of cool. I like it. It's a misdemeanor from my lens, right? But instead of taking it away, I think I'm playing along sides of nostalgia. So I'm gonna keep it. However, because I cropped it, it's no longer even. It's only on the right side, it's only on the left side, but not at the bottom. So let's go add some vignetting of our own. Let's go here into, I believe it's in details. Okay, it's in effects. There you go. All right, so in effects, we're gonna be able to add a vignette. Ooh, so this definitely feels like it's a photo, not just taken in an antique store, but it's also photograph found and bought at an antique store, because I saw a lot of photos like that actually, and I love like purchasing old photos. I'm gonna show you some now so you can know what I mean. Okay, so I couldn't immediately find the photos, but I did find the kaleidoscope filter. So let me show you that. Okay, so this is my kaleidoscope filter. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So what I did, you can see that one side has the kaleidoscope and the other side doesn't. So what I did there is, in this photo, is this area I made sure was on the face of whoever I was photographing, so it wouldn't get messed up, right, by the kaleidoscope effect. It is really cool. The folks who invented this, I mean, first of all, they're in film, and so it makes sense. They're frequently experimenting with filters. But for the longest of time, I've been using glass and just like holding it in front of my lens. Never have I ever had an actual official filter because they didn't exist. So, you know, props to these folks, because these are awesome. Expensive, but awesome. So yeah, let's get back to this photo here. That's how we created those. And I think I'm loving the vignette. That's working for me. It's looking really, really cool. All right, so I'm gonna stop there, I think, with this one. I might do a little bit of color grading on the midtones. Just a tad. Never mind, probably the shadows. Oof, the shadows, okay. Why is that my favorite? I think that's always gonna be my favorite no matter what. Look at that. So that's so cool. It's very vintage. Just makes me happy to see my photos completed. It's like an entire journey they take, you know? They go from my camera, photographing them with my camera, interacting with people that I absolutely love about this. I'm actually thinking about starting a new series where I explore more of Austin. For those of you who may not be familiar with my journey, I moved to Austin, so I'm a very new person here, not yet an Austinite. And I want to find, you know, that energy to explore again, because post-pandemic was real weird. Post-pandemic was weird for all of us, wasn't it? So when I grab back that energy and head out to the streets and meet people and let my camera meet people. I just pasted the edit, by the way, on the vertical version. Yeah, it's just a current thought that I've had. It's more than a thought, honestly. I've acted on it at this point. This is the reason why I showed up to these events, or, you know, have taking my camera out at all recently. I will always feel so connected to photography, and I refuse to be, you know, I don't know. I mean, this is a heart to heart right now, but I feel like I'm going to go into this. During my journey as a street photographer, I know now everybody's doing street photography. It must be on your phones available for that experience and that exploration at your fingertips. But there was a time where that none of this was so considered, and I don't know. But I used to always love exploring, doing solo traveling and exploring with my camera, which at the time was a Canon 60. Gosh, the photos I've taken with that camera, which took me a long time to afford, by the way. And of course, I had to put it to use. Of course, if you know the name of the game, if you buy it, you must put it to use. So I definitely would meet people that would tell me that they used to photograph, they used to take photos, and they stopped. I mean, that was always very puzzling to me. Why did you ever even stop? You know, and I would always tell them, my constant response was, you can always start again. There's never a time that you can't pick up a camera again. Even if it's just to photograph, plants in the backyard, doing some macro photography. It's just a beautiful experience to see with intention. And I don't want you to get, saturated with negative feelings, because photography has been used and abused as a marketing ploy for online whatever. Unfortunately, it was an easy picking. It's a craft at the end of the day. Now it's video, and then next will be what? Animation, and after that will be what? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Your craft, your relationship to your craft is your own. And that's what I've kept close to my heart, is that, yeah, my craft is mine. So I can do with it what I want, and so can you. So I definitely think picking up your camera at any time, even if you've dropped off for several years, it doesn't matter. You pick up that camera, maybe try a new film, maybe try a new lens, maybe try a new filter. You never know, right? Like, what sparks new inspiration within you. So let's jump back into this, because I do want to jump into the Adobe Express right after this. And we'll put a carousel together, I think, and see what else we can manage to do with our photos in there. Remember, showcasing your photos isn't so much about, about social media presence or online presence. Often these photos end up in my website. They often end up on my Behance and my Behance profile, where there's so many wonderful, talented creators that will see my work with a really good, trained eye, So you want to do your best. I'm going to copy paste all these filters just because it's the same light condition, so I can. I would treat each one independently. That's usually my go-to, but for time's sake, we might not. I will do a minor edit here. I can see my wife in here. That's who that is. This is my wife, by the way. And I can see that you snuck in here. Okay, so I'm gonna try to remove that just for cleanliness. I'm gonna use this tool. It's the Gen Fill tool, and it's super cool because it is powered by AI, and I am exploring how to introduce AI in my workflow. And it doesn't always mean what the media is saying. Remember, it's not always that. it sometimes means my usual tools are super powered by this new technology that has a better assessment of the context of my images. So I can generate something new in those pixels as opposed to muddy pixels. I think I'm good with that. I'm on board. That sounds great. And so sometimes it creates things that are a little bit off. If it does, be aware this is an early release. But sometimes it does exactly what I want. So in this case, I've got to remove that, got to create a more bokeh edge to that Coca-Cola bottle. We all know it's a Coca-Cola bottle. So it's gonna be awesome, right? So I like that, less distractions. I kind of don't like this cable up here either, but I think because it's bokeh'd, I'm okay with it. So there you go. We got to do that. We got to do that one. And I think I'm going to include this one too. So Command V. Gosh, I really like this color palette. In fact, what I might do here is I got to straighten this a little bit. Oof, that lamp. Hello. This place was just everything. It was a wonderful set for me to do anything. I want to go back there and film if it's still open. Gentrification's no good, folks. It's not. So let's see. I like that. I'm gonna create a preset because I really like this color palette. So I'm gonna go here in this top, it looks like a diagram, 2 little circles, and I'm gonna add a plus. And what should we call this? What should we call this preset? Nostalgia, antique, vintage. What should we call it? I don't know. Vintage kind of sounds cool. Geometry. So I do want to include everything. We got light, color, effects, details, optics. Yes, I want to include all of it. Press save effects. Yes, we did do an effects. That was the vignette. So press save. And now we have a preset. We love presets, right? So on that note, we can apply this. I love this photo. I just love this photo. Okay, so we're going to find this under Sin Logos because I have my own folder. Now I have my own preset, which I can still determine the amount. Plus, minus. Oof. So one of my friends is doing a show, and we're a gallery show. And so we get to submit some of the photos that I have. And unfortunately, this gallery show is in black and white, and it's really hurting my heart because I'm just like, I can do black and white, but black and white is not my end goal. Very, very seldomly. I do have some shots of architecture that I just couldn't add any color to because it just looked too good in black and white. But that's not always the case. So, okay, we've got one. Hold on, we have another one here. Oof, I love this one. Albeit it's vertical, so I don't know why I took this in vertical. I don't think in landscape was a thing. So I'm gonna keep it as original to keep all the space as possible. And as you can see, there's a cowboy in the center of that liturgy. I love framing. But not only that, we've got some leading lines going down from the roof. There's definitely framing from this window, I think. Oh no, it was a mirror. So there's definitely framing happening there. It's a little bit hard. This one's a challenging one because the leading lines tend to warp, whether it doesn't look straight, because if I straighten following these lines, then the lines on the side look like they're off. So that's rough. I think the other way was better. This way was better. Now that I've told you, you probably can't unsee it. I think I'm just going to honor the letter G. The letter G should be horizontal, and that's that. Okay, let's go back to that preset. Vintage. There we go. Now let's export all of these three. And should we do large or small? It's going to go to my website and online social media. So I'm gonna do small for now. And let's see. We've got edited. Final edited images. Let's create a folder called vintage and press OK. So that should be exporting right there. Awesome. And now we can jump on over to Express. I really like these headphones, but slippery slip. Speaking of gallery photography shows, do you print your own photos or use a service? So I've done both. I think I was one of those kids. I wasn't really a kid, but in college, we often had to print our work to showcase anything. So instead of having files in your computer to showcase your projects, you often had to print them. So I often was someone who would have a close relationship with the printer, and I learned a lot. So much, in fact, I ended up creating a project at the end of the year called Print Misfits, which was focused on all of the things that printing shops don't have. I discovered that all across the world, people are experimenting with printers, and they're pulling them apart and they're creating their own experimentations. And I love that. I was like, Print Misfits, it's so cool. Because what you'll find, even to this day, is that when you go get your photos printed or your digital art printed, illustrations, there's very few print shops who have kind of that level of experimentation embedded into their company. There are some, and that's when it gets pricier, right? They'll show you different substrates, so different papers. I recommend watercolor paper or anything that has texture, because the ink falls in there so amazingly, especially for digital art. And I feel like it does get more expensive. Unfortunately, it's not mainstream to do experimentation with print. It's more devoted to the folks who are going to order like 1,000 pieces. Not for those of us who want just like the 5 pieces to showcase it at an art show and have them be unique. I may be wrong. Wherever you are, definitely investigate. Your local shops may be pushing the boundaries. Hopefully they are. Fingers crossed, you know. But yeah, I definitely find myself printing. I eventually started printing at home, so I have a large format printer that I use to provide the prints that are on my shop, because I have a shop on my website. I'll show you now. Thank you for asking that wonderful question. So let's see here. 4, 5. Okay. So I'll pull this website up to here and you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so up here in this little obscure, I don't know why I did this, but it's a little bit obscure. It's up here. It's called Shop, right? You can go into my marketplace. This, by the way, is a print shop that I came up with during the pandemic. So while we were quarantined, I just decided to call it Visual Marketplace, because it was born at home. And so I use Society 6 to print on demand on different items like this. But I also print at home, and I get to print 13 by 19s. And these are some of the prints I've been able to make. So before I put them up on the store, I always test them and I print them at home. And I make sure that the color is going to be true to what you should expect from here, from this digital. And it takes a lot of experimentation, because although I have everything calibrated, it's still kind of like a push and pull with inks, right? Like, this is not a backlit screen, which makes it more prone to being a little bit less vibrant, I would say. And so oftentimes I have to quite literally push the gamut to make sure that once it comes across in print, it's going to translate and make sense, right? So that's my print shop, folks. For those of you who want to check it out, I welcome you to. I also have some presets in here. Really cool presets. I love being able to put things on my shop. It's always like a little moment of, yes, I did it. Oh, and this is a free mood board for you to experiment. I used AI to explore different composition ideas inspired by my own photos, which is a really neat experiment. Okay, so now let's jump onto Express. Why are you open, Photoshop? Goodbye. Let's see. We've got Express. Where did Express go? Here you are. All right, I use the desktops a lot in my Mac because I'm really ADD. So I really need those like organizations. But every once in a while, things get out of hand. But I really, really try. Okay, so here we are. We're in Adobe Express. There's so many things in here. And as of late, there's even more, if it's even possible. We've got some really cool tools in here. We have, in the home page, we've got text to image, generative fill, text to template, text effects. Now, some of these you may be familiar with because generative fill we just used on Lightroom, right? So that's pretty cool. And let me just go tune in to. So I'm going to work on text to template because this is a great way to find a template that befits your categories. So instead of browsing through all of these, which is totally fine, there's so many cool stuff in here, you can definitely do it like this. Or you can go through all of these suggested templates. So Instagram stories, if you want a video template, like I said before, for your website, 1920 by 1080 happens to be the same sizing. So you can do something like this. So I might, in fact, let's go under marketing here. So under marketing, we can find a lot of different templates. We have for logos, for flyers, invitations. I sometimes go into these other categories because I just think, what if I can repurpose them to what I need? It might work out, right? So let's see. We've got these. Let's go into templates here. Let's dive in. See if we find something simple, clean cut. I like this one. This one's really neat. Let's click on that. So that is a 1920 by 1080. Okay. But all of the assets are editable, which means I can make it whatever size I want and fit it to whatever needs I have. So I love this. This actually really fits my branding. I love using grids. I love using gradients. This is really nice. I like it. And I have to start from scratch. So what I'll do here is I'll resize this to an Instagram reel story. What should we do? I think I'm going to do an Instagram reel. So resize, and we'll just be resizing this one. And what you notice here is that it doesn't just squeeze and crop out all of the assets, but instead it resizes the assets along with it. So it was like this, and now it resized. So that's really cool because then we have less work to do on our end. So let's do something like this. This is a cover title. I like this. I imagine that this is a cool place to have my images. So let's try that. Now, albeit this feels a little bit more modern than the images. So I might want to change the color palette here. As much as I love the purple because it's really pretty. Decisions, right? So I know I have some 9 by 16 images I can place here. He says, when I was in school, digital was just emerging. So I was mostly film and analog. You are so lucky because when I entered school, there was a dark room which was shut down. Why would anyone do that? So I had to teach myself, essentially. And to this day, there's a lot of, I would say there's a lot of holes in the journey of photography that I'm only now fulfilling. So for me, it was very backwards. I worked on digital before I ever touched film. Now I have my obsession with film cameras, especially living in Texas. You can go to any antique store and find gems. When I tell you gems, if you ever come here, that's, definitely schools should prioritize that again because it's just the whole journey. You want to know where all these things came from, right? Like the burning and dodge tool in Photoshop that is inspired by burning and dodging in a dark room. That's kind of cool. Most people don't know that, which is, I guess it's okay. You can still function. You will still live and go on and create cool things. But I don't know, I guess I'm a bit of a history buff sometimes, and I love all those things. So I'm going to create a different palette here to add a more vintage color palette. Let's see if we can colorize. Some of these assets need to be colorized. I don't quite like that one. White was good. Let's change the background color. So that seems to have another layer on it. So right here, we can find all of our layers. And so we can investigate further. What is this layer? That's the grid. This is... Yeah, that's the grid. This is the background, which we just colored gray. Where's the blue coming from? I mean, I don't mind the blue, but It's definitely a little odd. Okay, I'm gonna focus on these because I feel like these are a little bit more prevalent. So let's make them a vintage hue. I think they don't look as, they're cool because they're like organic elements, but they definitely feel more like from the digital era. Still, I think they can coexist, right? Can we agree? Hello, Hajar from Morocco. So nice to have you here. What's up, Jonathan? Yeah, the kaleidoscope light was really nice. Okay, so we're gonna add some of these photos in here now. We've got media. Let's go into media. And I don't know if you know this, but you can add, let's see, final edited images. Vintage. I'm gonna add this one. I've only got 2 options for vertical. I think I'm gonna add this one. Yeah, that works for me. So I wonder if I can put it within this box, or I can just remove the color and make that box transparent. Rounded edges. Rounded corners. Okay. So 11 points for the rounded corners. We can always crop. Do not know if we can create rounded edges with that specificity. Yeah, we can't. This is why sometimes, I don't know, I love to have, you know, as much control as possible in my editing, no matter what I'm doing, because I think of random things and I think, okay, maybe we can try that. What about we add an outline to this instead? Let's add an adjustment. Oh, you can always adjust the colors in here too if you need a little tweak here and there. Wow, I'm really breaking my head over this. I think I'm gonna do a special crop instead. No, I like it like this. I'm just gonna do this a little bit higher. I think that works. So let's move this one maybe around here. Something about the balance. So let's do photography. Portraits. And switch this over to here. And change the color palette again. Maybe my classic orange. I don't know if y'all know, but orange is my favorite color. It took me a long time to admit that because, you know, artists, we can't admit to a singular color. Turns out I'm one of them. And yeah, it took me a long time. But then I looked around and everything I have has a little bit of orange in it. So my environment told on me, essentially. So this is a cool subtext that we can add here. Experimenting with portraits in Austin, Texas. Of course, you can divulge a lot more in here. I feel like most of the time I try to make these personal. I feel like they're diary entries in some way, journal entries for my photography journey, which I tend to look back on. If you haven't looked back on your own photography, this is the time to do it, because believe me, if you need inspiration, just look back at your own journey, and it works. It works every single time. So I might put Edson Lagos here in case this ends up somewhere else, because people do that. No, but also if it gets featured, that's always cool. Ooh, Edson Lagos, that's cool. Let's do it like this. That's fine. Bold and caps. No. Shape. Maybe we can add a shape in here. Something like this. Something. No fill. There you go. Looks a little better, right? Yes, so my name is Sin Lagos. Sin is short for Cynthia. I never really liked Cindy very much, and everybody would call me that, so I went with Sin. I promise it doesn't mean anything bad. In fact, it's an acronym for canyons, canyons and lakes. And then my last name happens to mean lakes in Spanish. So the Spanish word of the day that you get to learn here is just for fun. But yes, that's my name, folks. Please learn to love it, because I do. There's nothing sweeter than the sound of somebody's name, right? As they say. So as you notice, this right here is looking much different than where we started. So we had this template, and now we have a vertical template. And what's cool is that we can make this a reel. Reels tend to have far more visibility. You don't have to play the name of the game. You don't have to do any of that, but you want visibility where there's more traffic. And quite honestly, from a graphic design standpoint, from somebody who had to create billboards where there was literally more traffic, yes, that works. It's a very simple thing. So I'm going to make this animated so we can put it as a video and therefore as a reel. So let's go into the animations. So now I can select everything and add an animation. It could be something as simple as a fade in. And let's make it a little bit longer, something like that, so it's not too distracting. Or we can choose to not select everything at once, and instead, let's do undo there. Instead, select only the picture and go into animation. And we've got in, loop, and out. So the in is the entrance, loop is the continuation while we're watching it, however long it is, and out is the exit, right? So we've got fade. I like fade for a photo, especially. We don't need to have this photo spin. It's just too much. So let's do a quick fade. I think a fade to black or something like that would have been even better, but that's okay. We can choose the personality, loud, energetic, smooth. We want smooth, something like this. Nice. We definitely want this one to come in at the same time, so we'll animate that too. Fade. And we'll do around there, smooth. And so when we play it, it looks like that. Now, the little circles, they can definitely be more fun, right? To attract some level of attention. You can have fun with that one. So you can make it spin. That's kind of a soft spin as opposed to this tumble one. But the tumble one is cool. I like it. So I think I might do that. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm going to do let's replay that. No, definitely the tumble was cool. Let's do the tumble for all of them. So tumble, 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 where'd it go? Here you go. Do that one here too. Now what's interesting here is that you can show the timeline. So edit the timeline and determine when things come in. So in this case, I want this to come in later because this element here in the background, because when it comes in, I don't like that they come in together. So, gosh, did I not animate that circle? I guess I didn't. Tumble, boom. That's what I like about Express. It's really fast. So what I'm gonna do here is make sure that this background comes in later. So go into these 3 dots and show layer timing. Now, when I grab that layer, it shows me the entirety of that layer, how long it's in here for however long. I want to reduce that so that it begins a little bit later. So there's a gap between the start, when that image fades in, and when that background appears. So I definitely want it to come in later as emphasis, not necessarily obstructing my image. Now, these little circles can come in at different directions, I would say. This one can come in from the left, from the right. Animation come in from the right as well. That makes more sense. We can animate the portrait. Gosh, should we use text effects for this? Let's use text effects just for kicks and giggles. Sometimes it's a little much, but vintage. I have keywords in my brain. Books, antique. And let's make it loose, so it's a little bit more organic, realistic, embellished. Let's do embellished. Do we want a tint? Yeah. Let's do kind of like an orange tint. Generate, and let's see what happens. Sometimes it's really cool, you know? So, oh, it is really cool. Hold on. Did we just create a really interesting, that's nice. Doesn't hurt to try, you know? Wow, I like it a lot. I didn't even pick another one. I think that's the one. I like that it's loose. It really goes with the photo. And this is just in an effort to give a space to our photographs. So imagine with me, if we were in a show, you would definitely create a space for your photographs, right? Maybe a white wall would be your selection. Maybe a black wall will be your selection. Maybe a title would go on top of the series of your images. There's so many things that could happen. Your label can come with your name. This might end up being the wall that you create. Maybe I can already imagine my wall being painted blue with grid lines. Like, why not? There's definitely so many different ways to do things that aren't the only way. I feel like we try to do it the right way so much that we end up just duplicating each other. So, I don't know. Food for thought. I love to go to one of those shops you mentioned. Online, everything is overpriced because sellers do the research and ask for more than reasonably priced. But if you see something, drop me a line with a finder's fee. I love that. Yeah, it's just sometimes it really is worth it to travel and find those antique shops. I always hit up an antique shop because you never know. But I haven't been really lucky in Florida as many times as I have been here. In Florida, I definitely had my moments. I went to see the SpaceX launch because you can do that in Florida. Not all bad things come from Florida, folks. And it was so cool. And we went to an antique shop afterwards. found a camera, a film camera with film in it. And I think I did a stream here on Behance with that film camera. And I named it SpaceX because it was perfect. So you could have really good luck and find some really good stuff, and it wasn't that expensive at all. You know, I was running the chance of like maybe it wouldn't work. So those risks do happen in these shops. But yeah. That's cool, right? Do you like this? Is this working out? Because I don't know, I've been looking at it for a little bit. I think I'm gonna add a little movement to the grid. I'm gonna do a loop. So the grid should be pulsing, breathing. Breathing? What happens if we make the grid breathe? Can you see it? Jitter? Oh, that's kind of cool, but jitter gives me the jitters. Blur. Okay, don't see it now. Blob, blink, blinking. Yo-yo? Oh, yo-yo is kind of cool. So if I did it left to right, that's usually what I do in my animation on Premiere. So I might slow that down, reduce the intensity. So now it happens, but a little bit slowly. I wish it didn't loop, but it does. I guess that's because I'm in the looping section. Duh. Right? Reduce this. I like this a lot. This is working out. So I oftentimes do a cover and then guide the rest of the scenes by that cover. So I can add another scene in here and include some of these elements. So I might want to include this. No, not that. I want to include maybe a few of these circles. This one and this one. So it's the cover, and this should be more of like, okay, focused in. We are working on the actual representation of the image. So I'm going to change this color palette to another, maybe this vintage palette. And in here, I'll introduce some more of my images. And in here, I can introduce like some of the horizontal versions, which is cool. So this one definitely needs a space. I wish I wasn't so serious in that photo, but I was. I like this. I like this. Okay. So then I can put these photos. See, this is where I can do like a similar ratio. So I can always redefine this one by cropping it in. What? I love this. I think this is working out. Be careful pulling it because it does end up cropping your image and zooming into the image, which could ruin the quality. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I think here, if I can zoom it in, I want to make sure it aligns with the grid, I think. I might make his the hero image because he was in the cover. So I want to show more of the kaleidoscope. Yeah, that's looking good. This type is not very visible, so we might make it more legible by adding a background to it. So let's look at what's available. We have this. Too much. As a graphic designer, sometimes I think these are awful, and sometimes I'm like, this is just right. So it kind of depends. Nowadays, there's a lot of graphic design crimes happening out there. I mean, the outlining of text, you see it everywhere. I do it sometimes, but I do it cleanly, you know? Like, I find a way to do it nice. Gotta kern your type. frustrations of new age designers. It's not even that. I think it's just we all have access to all of these tools, but not the same respect for the craft. Do you get my feeling there? My 2 cents. I love this. Experimenting with portraits. And then you can change that message, of course. But then we have this. We can also make this smaller, right? So shortened. 2.9 seconds it says there. Maybe make a group of it says it looks nice, but wait. It looks nice, but if it is for the kaleidoscope photos, maybe make a group of shapes in the background and have that group rotating. Oh, I like where you're going with that. That's so cool. So many opportunities here, you know? And as you can see, I'm not spending too crazy of a time. I'm definitely gonna shorten this animation. I'm not spending... Okay, here you go. Like, you don't have to be an expert at the pro apps like Premiere in order to do these animations. In fact, the entrance to editing for me happened in the editing timeline in Photoshop. At the time, I thought it was so complicated. And nevertheless, it was just the right like gateway to get me into the pro tools. So you never know, you know, what's going to be the thing. So let's go here. Fade, duration. Let's lessen that. Oof, not too much. Okay, there you go. I like that. I like that. Wow. Okay, what about we bring these in one by one? Is that crazy or should we do it? I have a few more minutes here with y'all. Like maybe 10 more minutes. Okay, show layer timing. What happened? Okay, here. So I'll select this one and I'll go into animation. Should we fade them in? Should we slide them in? Definitely not tumble. That's far too much. Drift. Oof, the drift is smooth. Do we agree or is that just me? Okay, let's select another one. Animation. Drift. I think this one can come from the right. And then this one will come from the left also. It's also a great place to get a sensibility for animation. And what I mean by that is you can, you know, how do I explain that? We all have to gain a level of sensibility for these practices. So some sensibility for editing color, sensibility for animating, sensibility for lighting. Gosh, it's so many things, but you really have to be self-aware on those fronts. And at first, when you don't know anything, you'll make all the weird mistakes. All of these things seem simple until you find yourself creating something really weird. But that's okay, because the weird has to come out somewhere, and then the good stuff come out. Actually, you can stay weird just as much as you want. The motto in Austin, Texas is keep it weird. So it's changed my mind on a lot of things. What? That was cool. You know, this could be your reel, just this alone. And in fact, we can go finding some audio. So let's go find some audio, shall we? What kind of music do you like? I tend to go to lo-fi because it's very calming. I don't know. What was the word I was going to say there? But it's very calming, just like the music we got going on. So let's do a quick play here. I'm gonna pause our video soundtrack. so that you can hear this. Okay, so let's listen to some of these. Let me know if you can hear it. So what do you think? Which of those sounded good? I think the second and third were my favorite. I've used the first one already, so I think the second and third have to be it. Hajar says, what site or applications do you modify these on? Do I modify these on? Oh, so this is Adobe Express. That's what we're using. I know it's crazy because it doesn't, what am I animating? Am I finding songs? Yes. Yes, I am. So let's drop in. I think this last one was my favorite. So you just drag and drop that media and you should be able to replay it. I think I might have to find a different spot. So just like images, we can edit audio to just be in the right place. Most times with audio, I try to place it not at the beginning of the song, but rather at the peak of the song, which is the chorus. So there is a point where it goes down. So that's where you want to find it. There's not a lot of crazy tools here for audio editing. So definitely just trimming will go a long way. I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to add one more scene, I think, in here. And we're just going to add, I think, my name. And this way we can do a little bit of self-promo because we do not believe in starving artists. We think the best way to show off your work is to give credit to all of your efforts. And I think that's the fair way. So we're going to put a nice outro here that gives a nice credit to my work. So let's do a quick text. Maybe we can find something neat in here. I've always loved this one. So you can see here the outline and shadow are done to perfection as opposed to, I don't know, wicked strange, as I sometimes find it online. So I like this one. This is Sin approved. And I'm going to say at Sin Lagos. Oftentimes I reserve this one for headlines because headlines are more important, but then an outro, headlines in a cover rather than in an outro. But because this is a signature, I think it deserves that level of importance. So I'm going to nevertheless make it smaller. We don't need to scream it. We can whisper it. Okay, something there. Everything is grouped, so we can also ungroup it. Right click, ungroup. There you go. And we can also animate it, just like everything else. So boom, at San Lagos. And then we can do another text in here. A simple one this time. So just add text. Photographer. I don't know. I've been a photographer for 6-7 years, like forever in every possible medium. And to this day, I misspell photographer. It's like, I think I just have like happy fingers and I type too fast. So that's what happens. Let's see. Let's go here. I think we had like an orange color palette. And we might make this something like thinner. Do I like that? Photographers and logos. Photographers and logos. Yeah, I think that's okay. I think it might be too far off. It's like you have bold and then you have really light. It's just too much. We need like a medium. And then maybe change this to white. It's working. This is not working. We'll just put it here on the edge. Do I like that? I kind of like that. I don't know if I love it. I might have to revisit it, but it's one of those things where you come back to it. Let's make this bigger. Yeah, that's better. Ooh, let's grab this and this, and we can group these and send them to back. And then we're just gonna center them. Centering didn't work so well here. Command G, center this one. It worked just fine, but I think the other items were off. Let's put some other elements here because we want it to feel like a similar vibe. So what other elements could we add? Maybe one more? No, that's fine. So I might add then a portrait in here. I like adding portraits. So I might say like, okay, so we've got add-ons. Under add-ons, I've got, let me see. What do we have here under add-ons? Okay, so we've got some really cool stuff in here. I think I might use, I think I'm going to do a different stream for add-ons because this, we can go into like a really, really cool rabbit hole in here. Let's upload. I think I have a photo of me in here. No, I don't. I always forget. But you know what? Forget it. I'll just add another photo of this series. So I'll add something like this. This one. I like this one. And what we'll do is we'll just crop it into a circle. Don't know if that's the one, but I'll leave it as is for now. The day's not the day. Gosh, does that bug me? It's like I want to put a photo in some ways, in some respect, because I feel like visuals speak more than words, right? But I think this will be okay. Okay, so we've got our animation, we've got our outro. I might reduce this to a little bit more like this so we have visibility, and we're gonna play the whole thing. Okay, so let's go. Oh, by the way, there's transitions in between. So we can always add a transition that jumps from each scene. So add a transition in here and add a transition in here. And let's see what it looks like. Nice, right? That looks so cool. Yes, so I'll be crediting these photographers. This is my wife down here. None of these folks are professional models. I definitely love working with professional models to help them get in their journey of their career and help me in developing more of my work. Gotta find their tags here, but then there's this really cool space right in the center where we can do add on, or down here, since we have so much empty space, right? So I think this is gonna be nice. We're gonna be able to showcase more of our work through spaces that are available and free, which is nuts because who else had this opportunity? A lot of people didn't, right? A lot of folks had to pay to be on TV, to be on a billboard. Now we have this social media space or your website, which, albeit that is probably really very much paid, but it's one of those things where I can find an audience of other folks who are inspired by the same things I am. A creative community does exist online. In fact, I met most of these folks through online, and we just met up in real life. So that said, friends, thank you so much for being here with me today. This has been a lot of fun. I hope to do more. If you follow me on Instagram, you will be seeing this posted on there. And yeah, I think I'm going to do a live stream on Instagram fairly soon. So definitely tune into that. That's going to be really interesting and a new experiment of my own. So I hope to see you here again. Keep up on YouTube to see the next schedule for upcoming live streams. And again, my name is Sin Lagos. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye.